Hello my friends and welcome to our latest episode of the Ups and Downs for Star Trek Lower Decks, going through Season 3. Now, before I go in, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who is liking, sharing, subscribing. You know how much I love you for this. Look at how much this channel has grown over the last while. So thank you so much. If you are watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. It will bring you up-to-date news on our video releases, and basically it just means I'm going to come to your house and give you a cuddle. That's how it works. Everyone overthinks this. I mean, how does Sean come and give us a cuddle? Hit subscribe. Simple as. Please note, nothing is guaranteed. What an episode it was this week. Uncle Mike absolutely delivered. So we're going to get straight into it for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 5, Reflections. This episode it's very much a show of, I feel, an equal A plot and a B plot. So the A plot this week centers around Rutherford. So the first up I have of the week, which I must say was a request by Chris, Up, the towel guy. Rutherford jumps out of his dream and Towel Guy, who is a big, broad, muscly fella, goes, "Ah! Call us simple, but I like simple humor. I love it. It works. It's silly and it's fun." But that sets the tone for a lot of the episode. Not that it is a complete and utter farce of an episode, because it isn't. But there is a lot of comedy this week, and this does set the tone quite nicely. The second up, of course, I'm going to give to this whole episode is Rutherford. Rutherford gets you get a lot of exploration of his character. Now, this is because due to 24th century mumbo jumbo kerfluffle, his older self, I think is the best way to explain this, comes to the fore of his psyche. There is effectively two Rutherfords. There is present day Rutherford and there is Rutherford from a period of time ago. Now, in conjunction with the Federation News Network, I'm going to throw it straight away over to Canon Watch.
Hello Sean, and thank you very much. Now, here on Canon Watch, we pride ourselves on digging deep and going through all of the facts and the figures, and we have done a bit of investigative journalism this week. The subject of this week is, of course, Samanthan Rutherford, and how old exactly is this officer? The flashback reveals that the person most directly responsible for blowing him up and giving him his implant was wearing a Star Trek The Next Generation era comm badge and uniform, which means the latest this can happen was circa 2369 to 2371, which is at which point they swapped out comm badges. If we are to track this, Star Trek Lower Decks takes place in the 2380s, by which stage there had already been rather a lot of years of the First Contact grey uniform, and also the Voyager era comm badge. So how long has Samanthan Rutherford been an ensign for? How long has his memory been erased? Is he going to take on the title of the longest serving ensign in Starfleet? Only time will tell, but we here at the FNN have gone through all of our sources and all of our resources. He has called a Romulan warbird a cruiser when in the past. He was, of course, unaware what the Delta Flyer was. And finally, he was unaware of just how far down the spots go on Ensign Barnes. Well, at this stage, Samanthan Rutherford probably knows exactly how far down they go. So, for Canon Watch this week, we are bringing you the breaking news that Samanthan Rutherford may not quite be the same year as the other ensigns on the Cerritos. We will bring you up-to-date news as it comes in. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Sean. Now, did that make sense? Did you see where this is going? They are giving us so much backstory without giving us answers. So, the up that went to Rutherford this week, the Latinum up for this week, is the slow drip of information they're giving us. We're here in Season 3 and we still don't know what the full backstory for Samanthan Rutherford is. What we do get is an exploration of his character, and this it goes deep in. It shows you that it was an accident that, made him get the implant, but it also wasn't. There was a shady character from, between season 3 of The Next Generation to season 3 of Deep Space Nine who was there and, ordered this procedure to take place. That's fascinating to me because what's going on? And in an episode that alludes to episodes like Conspiracy and things like that, I really, really like this inclusion. I love the interplay between both good and evil Rutherford. Hold on, hang my hat. Down for the episode. Down for evil Rutherford. So actually, this is not a down for the episode. I just did not like evil Rutherford. I want to give him a down. Just him. That's it. He gets it down. He was mean to Barnes and he pushed Tendi. Down. But, having said that, the interplay between the two versions of Rutherford was really, really compelling. Actually, in my preparation for this episode, having spoken to a couple of friends, a lot have said the same thing, that they felt very emotional watching this episode. And you know what? I get it. I care about these characters. I actually, I care how they act. I care how they interact with each other. So, to Star Trek Lower Decks, thank you so much for giving us zany, off-the-wall characters who we root for, who we care for, and who we are really, really curious about. Absolutely loved it, I have to say. All of Rutherford's story this week, absolutely brilliant. There is a line actually from Rutherford's story that I have to single out for an up as well, which is when Rutherford is telling Tendi about his dream and she asks straight away, oh, was it a dream about a new timeline about Kirk and Spock who have like cinematic chemistry? Up. We love a Kelvin reference in this universe. There's a down that I do want to mention. It's going to seem a little bit harsh, but bear with me. It's something that you've heard me say before. The absence of both Jennifer and T'Lyn. Jennifer, let's start with Jennifer. Jennifer was set up at the end of the last season to be a major player in Mariner's ongoing storyline. And now we have a B-plot that features Mariner doing quite a lot down on Telgana 4, and again, no mention of Jennifer. The character of Petra Aberdeen is clearly being set up as a kind of a Vash character, but I did initially, I thought, potential love interest. Now, there's disagreement on that, that's absolutely fine, but I just thought again, where's Jennifer in all of this? All of this development is happening off screen. And that to me, it feels like a miss. And with the character of T'Lyn, who was again clearly set up, or seemed to be clearly set up to be a major player, now maybe they're saving her for the last episode of the season, a bit of a reveal, and okay, that's fine. But again, it just feels, I'm feeling their absence, which is fantastic for T'Lyn, who only had one episode before this, and I very much feel her absence. But Jennifer, who's been there kind of throughout and was set up as a major player, that to me is a down. It's something I wanted to mention because it's a small absent part of an otherwise great episode. Now this leads me nicely into the Boimler and Mariner storyline of the week. So this is the B storyline, but as I say, they are very much, I'd say it's equal weight in the two storylines. Mariner and Boimler have been tasked with going down to the Starfleet recruitment booth on Telgana 4, and although Mariner is initially like, oh, this is the most boring job in the world, Ransom reminds her that she is very much being watched closely, which has been of course a thread of this whole season, and that if she messes up, she's getting reassigned to Starbase 80 so bad. Up. I love this recurring theme of Starbase 80 being the worst place imaginable. I absolutely love it. I feel bad for the poor people on Starbase 80. Ooh, Starbase 80! So good. So good. And it does. It completely goes, okay, yes sir, yeah, no problem. Okay, yeah, I'll do a good job. It works. It is the catalyst to get Mariner to do a good job. Away she and Boimler goes, and they go down to the planet, and yes, I'm going to cover so much in cetacean operations. Honestly, folks, be sitting comfortably when it comes to cetacean observations this week. Just be sitting comfortably. That's all I can say. While they're down there, what they have is they're basically getting abuse from the people who are walking around. There's lots of different alien races. Why should we join Starfleet? Now they're sitting beside, you have this character of Petra Aberdeen, who is getting an up from me. Spoiler. She's fun, she's sarky, but she's not mean. I mentioned before that she's kind of like a Vash character, and you can see that in the fact that she's the Independent Archaeologists Guild. There is a moment later on where she liberates an item from a museum, and I do like the character. We'll see where we're going with this, but Boimler and Mariner are somewhat stuck by the fact that they're stuck beside her and they're facing the truth You know, the conspiracy truth people, just across them is the Collectors Guild. You know, they're not in the best location. But as always, they play off each other so well. So, Boimler and Mariner, up from me this week. You see a flip in the relationship a little bit, because initially Boimler is the sort of the meek one, and you know, he loves his Starfleet, you know. Did feel it was a little bit of a dig at Sean when they're like, you know, kind of, oh, why is there so many different uniforms in Starfleet? And he's like, well, we have a flap on ours. They're like, oh, that's so silly. We colonists can wear whatever we want. Yeah, but you don't get to go exploring space, do you? Yeah, you dicks. But they take it too far. And they take it too far because what they do is they remove Boimler's piece of rank insignia. And then what you get is that normally where we have Mariner being the zany one, the one going off on the adventures, and Boimler is the, oh no, like we have to be, even bold Boimler's like, let's play things by the book. Boimler goes batch. I mean, he flips the table. He runs around, he's smashing things all over the place. He's screaming at people. He's shouting about other things that'll come up in citation observations. Seriously, stick around. And it's just hilarious. I do have a down I have to give. I made a promise. We overdid the Kobayashi Maru, and I don't care that he failed it 17 times. I made a promise that I have to down the overuse of the Kobayashi Maru in all of the Star Trek universe at the moment. Sorry. But the scene is so funny. You know, people are just like, what is going on? And he is screaming and he's hollering and he's shouting, and it's one of the best sales pitches that they could have done. And suddenly their booth is swamped. You've got Mariner there with all, you know, filling out data pads. Yes, I'll get your details and your details. Yes, you will get to wear those uniforms. That's so cool. Yes, you do get to go exploring. It's so much fun. You know, it's great. Like when Boimler kind of runs up to the conspiracy truthers and he's like, do you think we want to defend you from the Romulans and the Borg? And he's like, you know, we just want to explore quasars. And it's funny because yes, there's a great line this reminds me of from Star Trek Insurrection, when Picard is standing there in the turbo lift and he turns to the others and says, do they even remember when we used to be explorers? Do you remember when Star Trek was about exploration? Now, it still is in its own way, but yeah, like, it's a great moment to be like, we just want to do scientific exploration, and then, you know, suddenly the Cardassians are up in our faces. Loved it. I'm sorry, yeah, I'm getting lost in the moment, but I loved it so much. It was so much fun. To see Boimler lose was cool like this, and also, this leads to Boimler, of all characters, spending the night in the brig. Ransom arrives and he sees Boimler, you know, is hopping about like a mad rabbit, and he sees Mariner sitting there at this the booth, and she's signing up so many people, and he's like, you can see written all over his face, he's like, this is not how I expected this to go. So, you know, Mariner gets a slap on the back for signing so many people up, and Boimler gets a slap on the wrist for, you know, smashing so many different booths. But even Ransom sees the funny side, and he's like, listen, you know, protocol dictates I have to put you in the brig for the night. But I mean, this is hilarious. And, you know, even Boimler is like, are you going to send me to Starbase 80? And Ransom's like, nah, that's the worst. No, I'm not doing that. No, God, no. That was just an incentive. And I just love it. Everyone has their, God, this is bad, but at least we're not. And this is Lower Decks' version of that. So yeah, like so much of all of that storyline was so much fun. To return to Rutherford, who clocks the fact that there's something wrong with Rutherford straight away but Tendi? You know, it's like, as we've discussed many times in this channel, Tendi and Rutherford, Boimler and Mariner, the pairings work. It's nice when they're mixed up every now and again, but who better to recognize there's something up with Rutherford than Tendi? Tendi does alert the rest of the crew, which leads to Anna and Shax basically tracking him down. You've got evil Rutherford is running around, and, you know, he beams himself onto the captain's yacht. Lovely to see the captain's yacht, only to be confronted by Shax, who's just like, basically, sorry, baby bear, shoots him with a phaser. And then we see something that we didn't quite expect in Dr. T'Ana. Like, up until this, she has been just the greatest source of just comedy. Whenever she appears, I'm just laughing. You know, whether she's, you know, Diane robbing the bank with Shax, you know, the previous week, or she's there with a bone chainsaw about to take off a fella's foot, you know, hopefully it'll grow back. You know, there's always a good bit of slapstick comedy around her. And none of that is here. You've got Rutherford, and he is not well on the biobed, and there is a strong chance that our Samanthan Rutherford is not going to come out of this. And all you've got is pure concern, and you've got Shax just places his hand on her shoulder. And it's a really intimate, really caring moment. Shax and Anna, for me, were very like parents in this situation. And that's an up. This sort of odd family unit that's going on. Shax and Anna, Rutherford and Tendi. And it's just quite lovely. And while you've got everything that's going on inside Rutherford's mindscape and, you know, he brings his friends into the race and everything, and that's all lovely and great, this is the moment that really stood out for me in this entire storyline. As other bits stood out as well. This was lovely. So Rutherford, you know, he wakes up and they're all there, and there's a little bit of a Wizard of Oz, and you were there, and you were there. Without hesitancy, he says as he hesitates, this has been the best episode of this season. It got the balance of Easter eggs to story exactly right. That's why, for me, it puts it over episode 1, which I really, really enjoyed, but I thought it was a bit too heavy on the Easter eggs that week. Whereas this week, you have, I mean, a crazy amount of Easter eggs, and yet it pushes the story forward, introduces new story threads, and I just think it absolutely smashed it. So all kudos to Uncle Mike, because, well, he's just delivered an episode that, like, we got everything we wanted. And I'm so here for it. So, I've alluded to it enough. When you're ready, when you've got a coffee, come and join me at Cetacean Observations. Before I start, they start there. Ariel's sitting comfortably. So we get a reference to Kelvin, Kirk and Spock. We get a reference to an anaphasic alien, which is of course what Ronan from one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, Sub Rosa, was made out of. I am not wrong. I've got a bone to pick with you, Star Trek Lower Decks. We get the Collectors Guild, which of course we were introduced to in The Most Toys, and we saw again previous season in Lower Decks. And yeah, Boimler, who I was really on board with there for a second, turns around and says, like, collecting isn't something cool. I beg to differ. At the Collectors Guild is the lovely metal face who we'd seen before. There is Data's portrait of Spot. There is Spock's helmet. That's an up. I know it's been in Lower Decks before. Spock's helmet gets an up. Simple as. Now, there is a DAC tag knife. There is 2 little figurines of Data. Yes, I checked. They're both Data, not lore. There is the sex candle. I'm so happy. We have anaphasic alien and the sex candle. Who knows? Are we getting a Ronan cameo at some point? Now, there is the Stone of Gaul, which is incredibly worrying because that was supposed to be broken down in the episode Gambit. And like anyone who has access to psionic powers can kill someone with that. Well, I suppose so can a phaser. But anyway, there is the Reckoning tablet intact. Interesting. So that means that Cisco smashed it, they put it back together again, and it got smashed again before it ended up in Picard's study in season 2. Nice. You've got the hilt of Duros' sword just at the side of the booth there. Now, you've got a figurine of the Gorn from the original series. You've also got what looks like a little plushy Ferengi, which I want. And you've also got a visor sitting there at the front, just beside Spock's helmet. There's a Caddiscat board. There's also Khan's necklace turns up again. Again, haven't a clue how they managed to get that out of the Genesis planet, and yet they did. Animation doesn't have to make sense. Walking around, there is an Andorian, there is a Lurian, there is a Vulcan, there's a Klingon, there's a couple of Antedians, there's a Galardonian, there's an Ariolo, there's a Ferengi. There's a dude who looks like the Night King. Now, I'm aware this is probably not the Night King from Game of Thrones, and yet I choose to call him that. Now, then we move over to the truth conspiracy guys. There is a bluegill parasite sitting there at the front of their booth. Conspiracy is probably the best episode of season 1 of The Next Generation. I realise that's not saying a lot, and yet it is a fantastic episode. And there's that little parasite, that one that we haven't seen since outside of Star Trek Online, which is where I got the bluegill from. Now, there's a poster of the Mugatu on this conspiracy board. There's also a poster of Shax on the conspiracy board. How did he come back to life? What went on at the Black Mountain? Who knows? Over on the Federation recruitment booth, there is a model of the Stargazer, which I still would love an XL version of. And right beside that, of course, is the Kirk and Spock photo op with their faces taken out so that you can be Kirk and Spock. I want it. Mariner says you can have some Warp 10 excitement if you join the Federation. Come and discover the undiscovered country. There's a Tellarite standing there who seems interested until Petra leans over and says, do you want to be assimilated? Very, very funny, no? Federation drone, Borg drone, what's the difference? Now, at Petra's independent archaeologist stand, there is, of course, one of those statues or kind of pillars from masks as well. She also, they discover that she served aboard the USS Victory, which is where Geordi LaForge was stationed before working on the Enterprise D. Now, and there's also going back to the Cerritos itself. Now, you see evil Rutherford walking around, he bumps into Barnes, and there is that reference to, well, I wonder how far those spots go down, which is basically a rephrase of what Bashir says to Ezri at the very beginning of What You Leave Behind. There is the flower from Omicron Ceti 3, which is the episode This Side of Paradise of the original series, which shows Spock laughing and hooting and hollering around. Good fun. Now, in Rutherford's mind, you've got the frickin' Delta Flyer up. We love the Delta Flyer! And also, we get the Delta Flyer, the flight suit from Drive as well. Absolutely hilarious. And a shout out, of course, to Tom Paris, who designed it. You have down on the planet, we're kind of going up and down, the different uniforms. TNG seasons 1 and 2, you've got TNG dress uniform. We get the Wadai from the Gamma Quadrant, who of course were from one of the greatest episodes of DS9, Move Along Home. Alamarine, count to 4. There is pieces from the game Chula. They also have copies of the game, and also they have Batleths and Binocs sitting on their bench, and Boimler runs up and says, stop putting people in games! Just stop locking people in games! He runs around saying the EMH didn't spend 7 years in the Delta Quadrant for you to question his agency, which is of course a reference to the episode Author from the 7th season of Voyager. And there were of course the appearance of that beautiful Diderodix class warbird, which we love. Just as evil Rutherford is fading away to nothing, he does the Wrath of Khan remember to our Rutherford. That is an up because we love that movie. And at the very end, Petra Aberdeen has liberated the Grand Nagus' scepter. That is everything for our list this week. If you reckon I missed anything, just drop it in the comments below. Absolutely love it. I mean, my God, there was a lot to get through. What did you think of this week's episode? Was it your favorite of the season? Was it your least favorite of the season? Was it fine? Let us know. We want to know. Follow us over on Twitter at Trek Culture, and remember to follow me at Sean Ferry. Get me on Twitter, get me on TikTok, get me on Instagram, all of those. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You know how much I love you for doing it. And I will see you again very, very soon, my friends. In the meantime, make sure that you live long and prosper. Make sure that you take care of yourself, take care of others, our friends in Ukraine. Stay strong. We also want to take this opportunity to offer our full support to the brave protesters in Iran this week. You can get through this. We are behind you. Everyone have a wonderful however long it is till I see you again. Make it so.